Welcome back to the Daily Bible Breakdown. Today we're looking at Exodus chapters 19 through 21. In chapter 19 we find that the children of Israel camp at Mount Sinai for a period of about 3 months, and that's where they're waiting to receive the law from God. And so they go through a number of ceremonies as they prepare themselves and as Moses prepares himself for this task of receiving the law from God. When we get to chapter 20, we find the very famous passage containing the 10 Commandments. Now, this is not the entirety of the law that God gave to His people. In fact, the entire Mosaic Law has 613 different commandments. But the 10 Commandments are representative of all those other commandments and provide a great introduction. Now, the law was given for the protection of God's people. It was given to teach them valuable lessons about God and about themselves. And it was also given to separate them and distinguish them as God's chosen people. It became basically their constitution and would deal with every conceivable area of life. Everyone knows the 10 Commandments, and so I'm not going to belabor the point here, but it is interesting to note that they're divided into 2 categories. The first 4 dealing with our relationship with God, and then the final 6 dealing with our relationships with one another. And a lot of interesting things are taught in those first 4 commandments especially. We have the first commandment, which states that there should be no other gods before the one true God. In this, He gives them His identity, who He is, the one true God that delivered them from the Egyptians. He is unique. He stands alone. There are no other gods. And He also demands allegiance from them. The second commandment is kind of a reiteration of that, in that there should be no idols, no graven images that would take His place. The third commandment is especially interesting because it says that His name is not to be taken in vain. And that teaches us that God's name is to be reverenced. It shouldn't be used in any trivial way. It certainly shouldn't be used as a swear word, but it means so much more than that. We have to be careful the way that we use it. But it also means that God is not to be represented inaccurately. You can take His name in vain by bearing His name and then misrepresenting Him. The children of Israel were a people of God's name, and they were to represent Him appropriately. We, as Christians, are a people of God's name, and we should be careful to represent His name accurately and not take it in vain in that sense. And then we have the fourth commandment, which is concerning the Sabbath. And this teaches us that it's important to set aside time to rest and to focus on worshiping God. Now, the Sabbath is no more. It was fulfilled in Christ, but the principle remains that there is still a need to take the time for these important areas of our life. When you get into chapter 21, you find that Moses begins laying out the elaboration of all of the laws that were given and summarized in the 10 Commandments. And so it deals with things like worship and reverence, but it also deals with things like personal injury. And it even elaborates on the issue of capital punishment. Again, principles and laws to govern every conceivable area of life as God was preparing His people to live in their land and to represent Him in the best possible way. That's all the time we have for the Daily Bible Breakdown today. We'll see you in the next episode.